Dr. William Bender has written 6 books in response to intervention, more than any other author. 2 of these will be published in 2011, and 2 of his earlier books have become bestsellers in the RTI area.
I'm currently developing a book on the implementation of RTI in middle schools and high schools, and I wanted to get some information out fairly quickly on this because there are differences in how RTI is being implemented in the upper grade levels. In a departmentalized school, a teacher may see 125 or 150 students a day because the students are changing classes, and I know of no models from around the nation in which teachers in biology or chemistry are pulling aside small groups of students for systematic Tier 2 intervention. That is one of the differences, and here are several others. First of all, the concept of universal screening. In kindergarten, first and second grade, it is critically important that we universally screen. In other words, we individually administer an assessment to every student in the program, and typically it's done 3 times a year. However, the term universal screening means something quite different in the middle school and high school context among the programs that have implemented RTI. What is done at those grade levels is a combination of factors are used, a combination of indicators are considered. For example, when a student enters grade 6 in the middle school or grade 9 in the high school, we have a much more complete picture of that student's academic achievement over a series of years. Such a picture is not available when a student is in kindergarten or grade 1. So consequently, the screening that is done in the middle and high school model programs typically begins with consideration of the statewide assessment scores and other assessment data in the student's file. In many cases, the term universal screening might be incorrect in the sense that if a student is getting 50 to 75 percentile in reading and mathematics or writing and the other areas, there's very little more that might be necessary for that student in those grade levels. However, students below 25th or 30th percentile might need additional consideration to determine if a Tier 2 RTI intervention is necessary. In those cases, teachers may recommend students for Tier 2 support in either reading, language arts, or mathematics. Another difference there is the intervention planning. Whereas general educators around the nation in the lower grades are doing much of the Tier 2 interventions themselves, in most middle and high schools, that is not the case. While Tier 2 is certainly a function of general education, in many schools an intervention period is planned in which the students go get an additional period of Algebra 1, Algebra 2, perhaps general mathematics, or maybe reading. In other cases, schools have begun to adapt current support programs as Tier 2 interventions. For example, if a school had a math lab that was already in existence, then the scheduling for that math lab for struggling students would have already been undertaken. Now, not every support program will function as a Tier 2 intervention. Tier 2 interventions must be highly systematic. They should be targeted at specific deficit areas among the students. They should focus on a curriculum that emphasizes exactly those deficit areas, and they must include fairly in-depth progress monitoring. If a math lab is available in which students were attending twice a week, say, for homework support or supporting classwork, while that is a good Tier 1 support to have, it is probably not appropriate to consider that a Tier 2 intervention. However, that math lab could easily be adapted by focusing on the types of expectations of Tier 2 interventions that were mentioned previously. Now, there are some commonalities among middle and high school programs. First of all, most of the programs out there emphasize highly differentiated instruction at the Tier 1 level. Differentiated instruction in the content areas provides the most appropriate basis for subsequent interventions in the RTI model. Secondly, most of the high school and middle school programs spend most of their Tier 2 efforts in the earlier grade levels. For example, middle schools find that they're doing more RTI Tier 2 interventions for incoming 6th graders and perhaps 7th graders than there would be for 8th graders. Whereas in high school, most of the Tier 2 intervention and Tier 3 intervention efforts have been expended for 9th grade and 10th grade students who are just entering. Now that doesn't mean that all students shouldn't have access to Tier 2 or Tier 3 support should they need it. But that's just how it's been played out thus far in middle and high schools. Next, when schools undertake to develop a Tier 1, the support areas that are typically targeted involve supports in reading and mathematics, perhaps algebra or algebra 2, sometimes general mathematics, while Tier 1 supports should be available in subject areas across the school curriculum. Most of the Tier 2 efforts have been in reading and math, and certainly many schools are including behavior in them. These are just some of the differences between the way RTI is being implemented in middle and high schools. I'm sure there are many other things that will be worked out over the next 2 to 3 years, and I find that each time I do a workshop with a middle or high school, I learn a great deal about how they've been considering implementing these. There are model programs available out there, and there are several books and sources that one can find on the internet. I hope this has been helpful for you, and should you wish, you are more than welcome to contact me. I'll be happy to work with you. Thanks.